Berlin, 1961. The city was a maze of divided streets, barbed wire, and watchtowers, each corner a potential trap, each shadow a possible observer. The CIA's operatives arrived under the guise of diplomats, journalists, and businessmen, blending seamlessly into a city gripped by tension. Every step was calculated, every interaction scrutinized. For the eyes of the Stasi and Soviet intelligence were everywhere. Berlin was not merely a city. It was a battlefield of information, where secrets flowed like invisible currents beneath the surface of everyday life. The newly erected Berlin Wall cast a long shadow over the city, physically and psychologically separating friends, families, and allies. For the CIA, it symbolized both a barrier and an opportunity, a challenge to navigate while exploiting the vulnerabilities that divided. Germany created. Operatives learned quickly that success required more than courage. It demanded subtlety, observation, and an almost instinctive understanding of human behavior. Small gestures, fleeting glances, and whispered conversations often conveyed more than documents or photographs ever could. One early operative, posing as a cultural attaché, walked the streets of East Berlin with practiced ease, noting surveillance patterns, guard rotations, and civilian behavior. Every tram ride, cafe visit, and park bench offered the potential for intelligence. Meetings were arranged in coded language, often under the guise of casual encounters or cultural discussions. Observing from shadowed doorways, the operative documented conversations, habits, and routines, slowly constructing a map of the city's hidden movements and unseen alliances. In parallel, analysts in Langley worked tirelessly, synthesizing fragments of information into actionable intelligence. Each report from Berlin was carefully examined, cross-referenced, and integrated into a growing understanding of the East German apparatus. It became clear that in Berlin, victory in espionage relied not on force, but on subtlety and the patient accumulation of small pieces of knowledge that, when combined, revealed the broader picture. The wall itself became both obstacle and tool. It prevented easy movement, but also allowed operatives to study crossings, identify patterns, and exploit the limitations of the border. Smugglers, defectors, and double agents became unexpected sources of insight, offering fragments of truth that, when verified and connected, contributed to the CIA's overarching strategy. Every intelligence-gathering operation was a test of judgment and courage, requiring operatives to balance risk against reward in a city where the wrong step could have fatal consequences. Covert meetings took place in dimly lit cafes, quiet alleyways, and private apartments, each chosen for discretion and security. Hand signals, innocuous phrases, and silent codes became a second language. The operative's existence was defined by tension, the constant awareness that Stasi informants could be anywhere, listening, watching, and waiting to report the slightest anomaly. Yet, within this pressure, a pattern emerged. Intelligence flowed where trust was cautiously built, and secrecy became both shield and weapon. One particularly delicate operation involved monitoring a high-ranking East German official suspected of coordinating espionage activities. Operatives tracked his movements over weeks, noting the cars he used, the cafes he frequented, and the individuals who entered his office. Using a combination of observation, intercepted communications, and carefully placed informants, the CIA slowly assembled a profile of the official's operations. Each detail, no matter how minor, could contribute to a larger understanding of East Germany's intelligence network. The city itself seemed to breathe with hidden stories, and the CIA became attuned to these subtle rhythms. Streetlights, trams, and public squares offered a theater for intelligence, where everyday life intersected with covert operations. Berlin's divided nature forced operatives to adapt, improvise, and anticipate moves before they happened. The environment shaped them as much as they shaped it, creating a feedback loop of observation, action, and reflection that defined espionage in the city. By the end of these initial months, the CIA's operatives had begun to carve out a network of observation points, contacts, and trusted informants, Shadows over the wall were no longer only obstacles, they became vantage points, offering glimpses into a world concealed by ideology, fear, and secrecy. Every whispered conversation, every coded gesture, and every discreet note added a layer to the agency's understanding, building the foundation for the complex operations that would follow in divided Berlin. The stage was set. Berlin was no longer merely a city. It was a chessboard where every move carried weight, and the shadows themselves could determine victory or failure. The CIA had stepped into a world where information was the most potent weapon, and the game of espionage in divided Berlin had only just begun. The shadows over Berlin were more than mere obstacles. They were conduits of information, channels through which secrets traveled unseen. In this clandestine world, the CIA's greatest asset was not technology or weapons, but human intelligence, the whispers of informants who navigated the treacherous streets of East Berlin with knowledge that could alter the balance of power. Cultivating these contacts required patience, subtlety, and a profound understanding of trust. For every informant carried the risk of betrayal alongside the promise of invaluable insight. Operatives began identifying potential informants among students, factory workers, and bureaucrats who, whether motivated by ideology, personal grievances, or survival instincts, could provide glimpses into the workings of the East German state. Meetings were arranged under the guise of casual encounters, a conversation over coffee, a shared moment in a public park, a fleeting handshake in a crowded marketplace. Every gesture was loaded with meaning, every word carefully chosen. Agents learned to read expressions, interpret hesitation, and distinguish genuine information from deliberate misdirection. One operative, posing as a visiting academic, frequented cultural salons and university events where East German students and young officials gathered. Through casual dialogue, subtle probing, and careful observation, he identified individuals who might be persuaded to cooperate. The process was painstaking, requiring multiple encounters, cross-checking, and a constant assessment of loyalty and risk. Even a single misstep could expose both the agent and the informant to surveillance, interrogation, or worse. Yet the potential reward a window into enemy plans, troop movements, and operational secrets was too valuable to ignore. Informants were trained in discretion as much as they were relied upon for information. They used coded language, prearranged signals, and secret drop points to communicate intelligence safely. Messages were often indirect, disguised within personal stories or academic discussions, requiring the agent to interpret context, infer intent, and verify facts before acting. Analysts Back and Langley worked in parallel, corroborating every detail with other sources, deconstructing intercepted communications, and creating a mosaic of actionable intelligence. The process of building trust was gradual. Operatives had to demonstrate reliability, empathy, and discretion, ensuring that informants felt secure in sharing critical information. It was a psychological game as much as a logistical one, understanding motivations, fears, and ambitions became as important as technical skill. In some cases, friendships formed, fragile bonds that existed in the shadow of constant danger. In others, loyalty shifted, and the delicate web of relationships required constant vigilance. Operations often involved clandestine movement through East Berlin, navigating checkpoints, surveillance cameras, and informant networks. Dead drops, hidden notes, and inconspicuous packages were common tools for transferring information without direct contact. A seemingly ordinary object, a newspaper, a book, or a package of groceries could conceal details that would influence decisions thousands of miles away. The ingenuity required to design, execute, and protect these exchanges reflected the sophistication of espionage in Berlin, where even everyday objects became instruments of intelligence. Electronic surveillance complemented human intelligence, but it was the informant's insights that often proved decisive. Knowledge of meeting locations, shifts in loyalty, subtle political currents, and bureaucratic inefficiencies provided context that machines could not. Each whisper collected in the shadows became part of a broader narrative, a chain of evidence that allowed operatives to anticipate movements, predict actions, and stay one step ahead of East German counterintelligence. The stakes were personal as well as strategic. Informants risked imprisonment, interrogation, or execution for every detail they revealed. Operatives carried the burden of safeguarding them, ensuring their anonymity and security while maximizing the value of their contributions. Every mission was a delicate balance of risk and reward, requiring judgment, intuition, and the ability to respond instantly to shifting circumstances. By the end of these early operations, the CIA had begun to weave a network of trusted informants whose insights illuminated the murky corridors of East German power. The informant's whisper was more than intelligence. It was a lifeline, a source of guidance through the fog of surveillance, suspicion, and secrecy. Each piece of information gathered in these shadows strengthened the agency's understanding of the city and prepared the ground for the more complex operations that would follow. Berlin had become a city where information flowed in silence, where a whisper could carry the weight of strategy, and where trust and discretion were as valuable as any technology. The CIA's operatives learned to listen, observe, and interpret, transforming the human element into a weapon as powerful as any aircraft or cryptographic device. In the shadows, alliances were forged, secrets were exchanged, and the foundation of espionage in divided Berlin took shape, setting the stage for the next phase of covert operations. The whispers of informants were only the beginning. True power lay in the networks woven quietly across the sectors of Berlin. These invisible alliances formed the backbone of the CIA's operations, connecting agents, contacts, and operatives into a web that spanned the city. Every relationship, every meeting, and every coded exchange had to be carefully managed, for one misstep could unravel the delicate threads holding the intelligence network together. The city was alive with hidden currents of loyalty, fear, and ambition, and understanding them became as important as understanding maps or surveillance data. Building these alliances required discretion and patience. Operatives engaged with sympathetic individuals in East Berlin, students, civil servants, and even disillusioned party members, crafting bonds that could be leveraged for information while remaining undetected by enemy counterintelligence. Trust was earned incrementally, often through shared risks, quiet acts of reliability, and the demonstration of discretion in the most perilous circumstances. Each alliance was a fragile structure, balancing personal loyalty with operational necessity, constantly tested by suspicion and surveillance. The mechanisms of these networks were as ingenious as they were secretive. Dead drops allowed information to move without direct contact, while concealed messages hidden in everyday items allowed intelligence to traverse checkpoints unnoticed. Operatives learned to read subtle cues: intentional placement of a book, a marked newspaper, a pattern of gestures, siege serving as a signal understood only by those initiated into the network. These techniques allowed agents to communicate safely, even under the omnipresent gaze of the Stasi, and to maintain connections that could be activated when the time was right. One of the most critical aspects of these alliances was redundancy. No single contact could be relied upon entirely. Multiple nodes were established to ensure that the network could survive exposure or compromise. Operatives coordinated carefully, creating overlapping chains of trust and communication that allowed intelligence to flow even under duress. Each node of the network was meticulously vetted, cross-referenced, and tested, ensuring that the entire structure remained resilient against infiltration. The alliances extended beyond human contacts. The CIA also relied on electronic surveillance and clandestine observation points to complement human intelligence. Observatories hidden in attics, modified vehicles equipped with cameras, and recording devices concealed in everyday objects augmented the network's reach. Analysts in Langley synthesized this intelligence with the reports from informants, mapping patterns, predicting movements, and constructing a comprehensive picture of East Berlin's inner workings. The combination of human and technological networks created a level of situational awareness that was unparalleled in any other. Theater of the Cold War. Risks were omnipresent. Every alliance carried the possibility of betrayal, coercion, or exposure. Operatives had to constantly monitor the reliability of their contacts, looking for changes in behavior, signs of stress, or hints that someone might be compromised. The city itself was a living instrument of surveillance, with neighbors, colleagues, and officials acting as both witnesses and threats. In this environment, the ability to adapt, to anticipate, and to make rapid judgments about trust became a critical skill for every operative. The formation of invisible alliances also required careful coordination among CIA operatives themselves. Compartmentalization was key. Individuals often knew only a portion of the network, ensuring that if one node were compromised, the integrity of the larger structure remained intact. Planning, communication, and strategic foresight became as important as the human relationships themselves. The success of operations depended on this orchestration, turning Berlin into a chessboard where every piece had a role and every movement was calculated with precision. By weaving these invisible alliances, the CIA transformed a city under strict surveillance into a dynamic web of intelligence. Information flowed through channels invisible to the enemy, connecting disparate actors into a coherent whole. Each alliance, no matter how small or fragile, contributed to a broader understanding of East Berlin's political, military, and social landscape. These networks became the lifeblood of espionage in the city, allowing the CIA to operate effectively in one of the most challenging environments of the Cold War. Berlin's invisible alliances were more than mere connections. They were strategic instruments, turning human relationships into tools of intelligence. The delicate balance of trust, risk, and secrecy ensured that the agency maintained its edge, gathering insights that could determine policy, influence operations, and shape the geopolitical landscape. As these alliances strengthened, the CIA's presence in Berlin became both more effective and more resilient, laying the groundwork for the complex and high-stakes operations that would follow in the shadows of a divided city. The invisible alliances of Berlin relied on more than trust. They relied on the meticulous art of the dead drop. Across the divided city, countless locations served as silent intermediaries for the transfer of intelligence. A park bench, a hollow in a tree, the lining of a mailbox, or a loose brick in a building could conceal vital documents, photographs, or microfilm. Every dead drop was a puzzle of timing, placement, and discretion, a dance where success depended on both ingenuity and patience. The maze of secret exchanges transformed ordinary urban spaces into arteries of espionage. Each movement calculated to minimize exposure while maximizing the flow of information. Operatives learned the geography of Berlin intimately. They memorized every alleyway, park path, and building entrance, mapping routes that allowed them to move unseen. The placement of a single dead drop could influence the intelligence landscape for months. Retrieving a package too early or too late, leaving evidence behind, or misreading signals could compromise an entire network. Each operation demanded attention to detail, foresight, and adaptability, and operatives constantly refined their methods based on observation, experience, and the evolving tactics of East German security forces. The preparation for a dead drop was as critical as the act itself. Agents would scout locations repeatedly, studying foot traffic, patrol patterns, and potential observation points. Coded signals were established to indicate whether a site was safe or compromised. Even a simple gesture, a chalk mark on a wall, a scratch on a lamppost could communicate critical information to those trained to see it. The subtlety of these cues allowed intelligence to move without direct contact, reducing the risk of exposure for both the operative and the informant. One particularly tense sequence involved a dead drop near a busy East Berlin square. The operative arrived under the guise of a street photographer, blending into the crowd while a hidden package waited in a public planter. The handoff required perfect timing. The operative had to remove the package, check its contents, and replace it with a new set of documents, all while avoiding the gaze of surveillance cameras and Stasi officers patrolling nearby. Every second counted, and a single misstep could lead to arrest or worse. Yet the operation succeeded, the intelligence reaching Langley intact, a testament to the precision, skill, and courage of those involved. Dead drops also served as a psychological tool, reinforcing the bonds between operatives and their contacts. The very act of coordinating an exchange without direct interaction created a sense of shared risk and mutual reliance. Each successful drop strengthened trust, provided valuable information. A man demonstrated the sophistication of the CIA's methods. In a city as heavily monitored as Berlin, these exchanges were lifelines, allowing communication to flow where open channels were impossible and direct meetings too dangerous. Compromise was a constant threat. Operatives had to be vigilant, aware that the enemy might monitor known drop points, interpret patterns, or set traps. Security measures evolved in response. New locations were identified, schedules altered, and codes rotated. Adaptation became essential, transforming the city itself into a living, ever-changing maze of intelligence. Even the smallest detail, misplaced object, or a lingering pedestrian could signal danger. Success required constant observation, careful planning, and the ability to react instantly to unforeseen variables. The dead drop maze exemplified the ingenuity and discipline of Berlin's covert operations. Ordinary urban landscapes were transformed into intricate networks of exchange, visible to the untrained eye, yet vital to the CIA's understanding of East Germany. These hidden pathways allowed intelligence to flow freely, connecting operatives, informants, and analysts in a web that spanned the divided city. Every retrieved document, every successfully completed exchange, and every avoided detection contributed to a broader understanding of enemy operations, creating a foundation for future missions that would extend the reach and effectiveness of espionage. In the end, the maze was not just a series of locations, it was a testament to human skill, patience, and creativity. Each dead drop represented a calculated risk, a precise coordination of timing, geography, and trust. Through this intricate system, Berlin became both a city of shadows and a conduit of intelligence, where secrets traveled silently through the urban landscape, carried by those brave enough to navigate the maze. The dead drop maze had transformed espionage into an art, revealing that in the world of covert operations, every shadow, every gesture, and every silent exchange could shape the course of history. The dead drop maze was only one dimension of intelligence in Berlin. Another, more elusive realm was electronic surveillance. Operation Phantom Signal represented the CIA's bold attempt to intercept and decode East German and Soviet communications. A task fraught with danger, technical complexity, and high stakes. Every intercepted transmission could reveal troop movements, espionage activities, or clandestine operations, yet capturing the right signal amidst the static required precision, timing, and an intimate understanding of both technology and human behavior. Analysts and engineers worked in tandem, developing compact, highly sensitive receivers capable of picking up encrypted messages transmitted across the city. These devices were hidden in innocuous locations, side apartment vents, beneath street grates, or disguised within everyday machinery. They captured snippets of conversations, coded phrases, and Morse signals, each fragment a puzzle piece that, when decoded, could provide strategic insight. The challenge was immense. Not only did they need to intercept the signal, but they had to decipher it without alerting the enemy to the breach. Operatives stationed near transmission points became human extensions of these devices, posing as maintenance workers, delivery personnel, or casual pedestrians. They ensured the integrity of the operation, discreetly monitoring the environment for signs of suspicion. Signals were logged, recordings collected, and patterns analyzed, often under the pressure of knowing that one misstep could expose both the operator and the technology. Every day was a test of nerves, intellect, and meticulous planning. Cryptographers back in Langley worked feverishly to break the codes, their efforts synchronized with real-time intelligence collection. Complex ciphers, frequently updated by East German operatives, required constant adaptation and ingenuity. Patterns were tracked, frequency shifts analyzed, and errors exploited, all to extract actionable intelligence without tipping off adversaries. The process was as much art as science, demanding creativity, patience, and an almost intuitive grasp of language and signal behavior. One operation involved intercepting communications from a high-ranking officer coordinating border surveillance. Over weeks, operatives triangulated the source of transmissions, adjusted receiver sensitivity, and recorded conversations without detection. Each intercepted message revealed minor details, guard rotations, checkpoint vulnerabilities, and planned inspections that could be leveraged in the agency's broader strategic objectives. When the signals were finally decoded, the information confirmed suspicions, validated informants' reports, and provided insights that influenced operational planning across the city. The stakes were amplified by the presence of enemy counterintelligence. The Stasi and KGB monitored for anomalies in transmission frequencies, suspicious activity around antennae, and any signs of tampering with electronic infrastructure. Operatives had to constantly adapt, relocating equipment, altering reception methods, and maintaining a low profile while ensuring the continuity of data collection. Risk assessment was continuous. Technical failure or misjudgment could compromise months of intelligence work and endanger lives. Operation Phantom Signal was more than a technological endeavor. It was a testament to coordination, ingenuity, and courage. Engineers, cryptographers, and field operatives functioned as a single organism, translating raw signals into strategic insights. Every successful interception strengthened the CIA's understanding of East Berlin, providing a level of situational awareness that complemented human intelligence networks. The fusion of electronic surveillance with informants reports created a multidimensional intelligence capability that allowed the agency to anticipate enemy actions and respond with precision. The psychological dimension was equally critical. Knowing that the enemy could be listening, watching, or analyzing every transmission demanded vigilance and discipline. Operatives learned to operate in silence, to make split-second decisions, and to trust both technology and instinct. Each signal collected, each code broken, was a victory won in shadows. Invisible to the public eye, but vital to the strategic balance in Berlin. By the culmination of these early phantom signal operations, the CIA had developed an unprecedented ability to observe, decode, and act upon enemy communications. The integration of electronic surveillance into the existing network of informants and dead drops created a comprehensive intelligence framework that made Berlin a city of both visible and invisible forces. The city's walls contained more than barriers, they concealed a web of information, flowing silently through the hands of those trained to perceive and protect it. The intelligence gathered through Operation Phantom Signal became a cornerstone of the CIA strategy in Berlin. It confirmed the importance of combining technology with human insight, turning the city into a living laboratory of espionage, where innovation, observation, and courage converged. The stage was set for the next critical phase of operations, where betrayal, deception, and the high stakes of human intrigue would challenge the operatives in ways unseen before. Operation Phantom Signal had revealed a labyrinth of information, but in Berlin, nothing was ever straightforward. The presence of double agents introduced a deadly layer of complexity to the CIA's operations, where trust and deception constantly collided. A single informant could be a loyal source one day and a turncoat the next, influenced by coercion, ideology, or personal gain. The city itself seemed to pulse with uncertainty, and the operatives learned quickly that every relationship carried hidden stakes. Every whisper could conceal a trap, and every gesture could be manipulated. The double agent was a master of disguise, not only in appearance, but in loyalty. These individuals operated in shadows, feeding false intelligence to their handlers, while simultaneously providing critical insights to the agency that recruited them. Recognizing who could be trusted required careful observation, cross-referencing of reports, and subtle psychological analysis. Misjudging a double agent could compromise entire networks, endanger informants, and dismantle months of painstaking operations in a single misstep. One operative found himself navigating a particularly intricate case, an informant who appeared to cooperate fully with the CIA while maintaining a high-level position within the East German intelligence apparatus. Meetings were orchestrated in secrecy, with coded signals and indirect communication through intermediaries. Every exchange was scrutinized, with attention paid not only to the content of the information, but to the nuances of delivery, the tone, timing, and subtle inconsistencies that might reveal hidden agendas. The process of handling double agents required a combination of patience, strategy, and intuition. Operatives had to anticipate the motivations and actions of individuals who were themselves skilled in manipulation. Counter-surveillance measures were intensified, communication protocols were tightened, and redundancy in intelligence gathering became critical to ensure that no single compromised agent could jeopardize the operation. Analysts constantly compared incoming information with known facts, looking for discrepancies that might indicate betrayal. Deception became a game of layers, while a double agent might provide accurate information to maintain credibility. They also inserted misleading details to control the narrative or protect themselves from exposure. The CIA's challenge was to distinguish the truth from the artful lie, using corroboration, technological surveillance, and cross-network validation. Every successful identification of a double agent strengthened the agency's operational integrity, but every miscalculation carried the potential for catastrophic consequences. The psychological toll on operatives was immense. The constant suspicion, the need to question loyalties, and the pressure of high-stakes decision-making weighed heavily. Each contact was analyzed not only for intelligence value, but for reliability. And operatives became adept at reading micro-expressions, subtle body language, and hidden cues. The art of deduction became a vital tool, and intuition honed over months in the city often made the difference between success and failure. Operations involving double agents were carefully choreographed. Dead drops, electronic surveillance, and human networks were synchronized to validate information and protect both the agent and the source. The city itself became a chessboard, where every move was calculated, every countermeasure anticipated, and every alliance tested. The delicate balance of power, trust, and deception created an environment where the line between ally and adversary was constantly blurred. Ultimately, the double agents game underscored the intricacy of espionage in divided Berlin. It highlighted the interplay between human intelligence, technological innovation, and psychological insight, revealing a world where loyalty was fluid and information was currency. The CIA's ability to navigate this perilous landscape depended on vigilance, adaptability, and the relentless pursuit of truth amid a web of lies. Each successful operation reinforced the agency's understanding of the enemy and the delicate art of covert strategy, laying the groundwork for the final phase of operations that would define their presence in the city. Berlin remained a city of shadows, where the game of espionage was continuous, and every choice carried weight. The operative skill in managing double agents ensured that the agency maintained an advantage in an environment where deception was as lethal as any weapon. The stage was set for the culmination of these intricate operations, where strategy, courage, and ingenuity would converge to leave a lasting imprint on the intelligence landscape of divided Germany. Berlin, 1963. The city's divided streets, barbed wire, and watchtowers had witnessed years of relentless espionage, coded whispers, and shadowy alliances. For the CIA, the operations in Berlin had evolved into a sophisticated dance of observation, deception, and strategy. The foundations laid by informants, dead drops, electronic surveillance, and double agents had culminated in a web of intelligence that penetrated the very heart of East German operations. Each maneuver, each calculated risk, had contributed to a profound understanding of a city trapped between ideology, fear, and secrecy. The echoes of these operations reverberated beyond the walls and towers, shaping decisions and strategies far from the cobblestone streets of Berlin. The agency's operatives had learned to anticipate enemy movements, predict bureaucratic shifts, leverage the smallest fragments of information into strategic advantage. The networks they had built, invisible yet resilient, were a testament to human ingenuity, courage, and the delicate balance of trust and risk. In a city under constant surveillance, the CIA's presence was both hidden and influential, an unseen hand guiding the flow of information in a precarious geopolitical landscape. The culmination of these efforts highlighted the importance of coordination between human intelligence and technological innovation. Operation Phantom Signal had shown that electronics and cryptography could enhance understanding, but it was the human element, the informants, the contacts, and the operatives on the ground that ultimately brought clarity to the shadows. Every intercepted message, every retrieved package, and every whispered conversation contributed to a mosaic of insight that informed both tactical decisions and long-term strategy. As the years progressed, Berlin became a proving ground for the CIA's evolving methods. Techniques refined here: network building, surveillance, deception management, and double-agent operations would be applied globally, shaping the agency's approach to intelligence for decades. The lessons learned in the maze of streets, parks, and buildings of a divided city provided a blueprint for covert operations in other theaters, demonstrating that success relied not only on technology but on the mastery of human interaction, psychology, and adaptability. Yet, the human cost of this invisible war was profound. Operatives carried the weight of constant vigilance, the burden of protecting informants, and the moral complexity of navigating a world where trust was fluid and deception omnipresent. Many lived in perpetual tension, aware that a single mistake could lead to imprisonment, betrayal, or death. Their courage and resilience, often invisible to the outside world, were as crucial to the agency's success as any device or strategy. Berlin's shadows, once a barrier, had become the stage for an unparalleled intelligence effort. Operatives moved through the city with purpose, blending observation, strategy, and intuition. Informants contributed from within enemy territory, their risks immense, but their information invaluable. Electronic signals were captured and decoded, revealing insights that could never have been obtained through observation alone. Every layer of espionage was interdependent, creating a complex, adaptive network capable of responding to evolving threats and opportunities. The city, its walls, and its streets held the echoes of a covert struggle that had quietly shaped the trajectory of the Cold War. Though the Berlin Wall would remain a symbol of division, the intelligence gathered within its shadowed streets demonstrated the power of ingenuity, discipline, and collaboration. The CIA's operations in Berlin revealed the potential of coordinated human and technological networks, leaving a legacy of knowledge, tactics, and strategic insight that would influence intelligence operations long after the city itself was reunited. Disclaimer: this documentary-style story is based on historical research, declassified records, and expert analysis. While the narrative captures factual elements of CIA operations in Berlin, some characters and events may be dramatized for cinematic storytelling. Spy Ward's story does not take sides or pass judgment on historical events. The content is intended for educational and informational purposes only. As we conclude this chapter of espionage, we invite you, our viewers, to reflect on the bravery, skill, and innovation of those who operated in the shadows. Comment below where you're watching from, share your thoughts, and subscribe to Spy Ward's story for more cinematic explorations of the intelligence world. Stay tuned, because the story of covert operations never truly ends, and every whisper in the shadows has the potential to echo through history.